Now this has been requested a lot for me to review this because I did review the previous two models. So this is now the third gen, the third refresh of Xiaomi's Mi Gaming laptop. Now I've got the highest spec version here because I thought now we've got the new screen, which is finally 144 Hz and not the slower 60 Hz, which a gaming laptop should have, that really it needs to have a more powerful GPU to drive and get the maximum performance. So this has 512 gigabytes of storage, 16 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM, and the NVIDIA RTX 2060 Core i7, the 9750H, which is a slight bump up from the previous generation CPU. Now there is a base model that does have 8 gigabytes of RAM, and you get the Core i5 9300H and the NVIDIA 1660 Ti. Now that doesn't support RTX, but it is a big bump up from the base model from last year. So in this particular video, I'm going to unbox it. We'll have a look at the design. I'll run a few tests, and in about a week or two, I'll have my full review going through my normal typical details like the fan noise, thermals, gaming performance, and even audio tests will all be in the full review. So let's check out Xiaomi's refresh of the Mi Gaming laptop. Alright, so in the box there's nothing flash, it's just that brown box. There's no inner black box anymore, which surprised me. Xiaomi saving money on the packaging costs. So our total weight here you can see is 3.28 kilos. This is quite a heavy laptop because of the components they're using, the cooling, the metal frame around it. It's a solid, good, well-built laptop. I know that from the previous gens and the fact that it hasn't changed. So the power supply here, I've just had a quick look at it. It's 180 watts and it uses that very common Mickey Mouse style plug here for laptop power supplies. So you can source a UK, US plug without a problem. The one that's included is a Australia, New Zealand plug, which is interesting. So the laptop's weight is 2.62 kilos here just by itself. So we have a plain alloy lid here on the top, and I like the fact that there's no gamer logos here. There's not a big huge red flaming dragon and no LEDs on the top, but this strip at the top here, it looks like it could be something for lighting, whatever. No, but this is actually just a cutout with a little bit of plastic in there. This is for the wireless reception, just to aid it in the quality. The fact that, of course, the metal is going to inhibit the signal strength there. So nice finish to it. Pressing down on the top here, I don't see books or anything in a bag pushing up and pressing the keyboard into the screen there, hopefully, because that can happen and it ends up damaging the screen. So there we go, same keyboard, nice large touchpad. It does support Windows precision drivers, and you can see our hinge right here. It's very stiff, feels good. The screen is matte, so no changes with the bezel. I will show you the screen, of course, in detail in just a second. Now the keyboard here takes a while to get used to. I know this with my experience with laptops that put these macro keys on the left-hand side. So this column of keys, I believe, is an error. I don't think you should mess with the QWERTY layout. You should never put them so close. This should be further over this way. Of course, if it was a 17.3-inch laptop, they could do that. Or simply move this row and put it right up the top, push the keyboard down a little, of course sacrificing a little bit on the touchpad. But I believe a lot of gamers, most people game, 90% of gamers out there won't be using the touchpad to game anyway, so not really an issue. So the power key is a little close here to the delete key. Keys are in close, but it is a quality keyboard. It is backlit. You've got full RGB zones that you can control on this one as well. And you can see the difference here to distinguish it from the earlier models, the first and second gen, is we've got this right now, 144 Hz, labeled there at the bottom, clearly showing we've got the new screen in it. Now the screen here does have this rubber that goes around the outside, so this is a nice quality finish. The build quality is excellent. I mean, there's no flaws, no sharp edges, quality plastics, matte around the outside, which is great. And then you've got the Xiaomi logo here, which is a little hard to see depending on the light which reflects off it. So again, very minimalistic design. Absolutely love the fact that it doesn't look really like a gamer laptop at all until, of course, you see the RGB keyboard lit up. So the webcam right up here at the top is 1 megapixel only, so 720p quality. You've got dual microphones either side, and this right here is a little stylus LED. So when it is on, that will light up white, of course. Now, if you're wondering about the thickness of the laptop, the thickest point, including the rear rubber feet, is 27 millimeters, which is about the sort of standard there. Gaming laptops are always thicker for their cooling, and this is the furthest that the hinge will go back, okay? It will not go any further than that. And this part along the top here is also made out of metal, and overall very good build to it. So we've got exit vents on the side, and also along the back here there's two. The laptop somewhat reminds me of Lenovo's Legion, the Y740, because it has the ports at the back as well. So we have gigabit LAN port here, USB 3, HDMI 2.0A, and then our plug for DC in, of course, for powering this laptop. On the left, we have separate audio jacks here. So one is your out, the other is for microphone in, two USB 3.1A ports, and then one of the exit vents there. And finally, on the right-hand side, we have an ultra-high-speed card reader here. So ultra-high-speed 1 spec, another USB port, and another exit vent there. Now you'll see with the palm rest that it is made out of metal. So the whole build is metal. It's high quality as mentioned. They've even got this cutout here. That's for the screen. So when it is down, it's very easy to lift it up. And yes, you can do it with just one hand because of the weight of this laptop. On the underside here, we've got some T4 or T5 Torx screws that hold the rear metal plate in. It's a little bit hard to get off, but in my full review, I will show you the internals. So we've got 5 wide copper transfer pipes in here, and then the 2 coolers, as you can just see. It's all painted black in there, and we've got a huge intake vent. The rubber foot on the back here is raised up nice, the height of it, so that's going to allow a lot of airflow to come through. And then the 2 downwards firing speakers, which I believe are 2 watts each. Now, as expected, the laptop, of course, is all in Chinese, being a Chinese laptop, so I'm going to do what most people probably won't. I'm going to upgrade to Windows 10 Pro, then I can add a language pack without any problems, and everything will convert over. This way, I keep all the factory setup, factory drivers. You can download the drivers pack and everything from Xiaomi's website, but I just find this is easier because it's also good for resale value. I can go in and do a factory reset and it retains that partition. But the simplest method is just do a complete new install, of course. Okay, so it did take me a while to install that, get the language pack on there, and you'll first notice that there is a bit of bloatware. There's this stupid wallpaper application in there that keeps changing wallpapers every 15 seconds or something annoying, and it's just a simple matter of fact of removing it. There's a couple other bloatware things too as well. Now this one here, G-Box, looks like it's some sort of bloatware, but this is actually really handy. In fact, you need it to change the macro keys. It does pull through in English, which is good, so it detects your system language. I don't know about other languages, but you can see English at least is working here. So the lighting, you've got your different zones, okay? So you're able to configure that. You can got, well, the breathing effect, wave. It's pretty straightforward like other gaming laptops here. So far, typing on the keyboard is good, but yeah, I'm getting a crazy amount of typos. So a lot of people want to know what the monitor is, okay? So this is a BOE 0867. Now this is newer. I think it's a newer monitor here, the 144 Hertz from them, and I don't believe it's using pulse width modulation to control the brightness. So the brightness so far is very good, measured way over 520 lux. So this is on the dullest setting, which, okay, could be a little dull. A little duller, I should say. And maxing that right out, I mean, it's going to overpower my camera. So it's a really bright screen. And you do notice straight away just how smooth the desktop is when you're using it. That the cursor just moves around real fluid. Scrolling in websites, you get the idea. You don't get all that lag. It's just super smooth. Of course, you're not going to see it here because I'm recording in 30 frames per second in 4K. So have benchmarked a few things here. This is just initial impressions, just a first couple of checks, because I know so many people in the comments want to know, what about the SSD speeds? What about this? What about that? Run a few benchmarks, and I'll show you that now. So these are, well, this is the internal storage. So you've got 512 gigabytes in total, but they've partitioned it a little bit stupid. Well, I mean, it's okay. They've separated Windows, and then they've given us this other one here called data. Okay, so data, you've got 324. Windows on first boot, you have about 120 gigabytes, I think it was, or 110 free. And they obviously you install your games in the larger one here. Now there's a spare drive inside. Now I won't show you internals in this video. That will be in the full review, which will cover literally everything. Before I mention it too, with the screen, if you want to know the Adobe RGB and all that, I'm trying to get that. You can probably see in the background, right in the corner here, this is my Spider 5 to measure the color gamut with the screen. And for some reason I'm having huge problems to install it. It won't save the profile, so I can't actually measure the screen properly. So that's a bit of a hassle. Okay, Cinebench, for those wondering, the score's not actually that much better. In fact, I've seen better on the previous generation, the 8750H, which is interesting because it's not really much of a step up, just the clocks. So we'll show you too that in Intel XTU that they have set a very high 90 watt power limit 2, I believe it is here, and that is good. Okay, this is similar to what Lenovo has done, and when you stress it out, so when I was running some benchmarks, if I just look back now around here where I was stressing it a bit, it will hold the clock of about 4 gigahertz across all 6 of the cores. So that's good. That's what we want to see. So it looks like there's no the bottlenecks there, at least because of power limits. So the whole system feels very fluid, really fast. And here are some other synthetic benchmarks here. So this is Geekbench 5. And here we have 3D Mark, Firestrike Extreme. So decent score. Physics, again, pretty much the same really as the last gen CPU. So Intel have a very disappointing chipset, this one for gaming laptops for 2019 for the end. So I'm going to wait for the, hopefully, 10th gen will really improve. And Time Spy as well here. Now, if you are watching this video and you've bought one of these laptops or you plan to, and you want to know where to get the drivers, this is it, okay? So make a note of this address. It's a little hard to find. Thermals so far are looking good. So this is just my initial phase of testing it. I'm going to need a week to do hours on end of gaming. I'll do some 4K video encoding and just really push it hard. So at the moment, we're not going over 81 degrees. The fan does get loud when you push it, and it's like all other gaming laptops. So far, it doesn't seem too offensive, but when you turn it on to the fan boost mode, which I haven't used yet, then you will definitely hear it. It's like a turbo engine takeoff. In fact, I'll give you a sample of what it sounds like, really loud, on the turbo mode. So get ready for takeoff. I'll push the turbo fan mode. And you can see it's getting up to about 59 decibels. Now for speakers, we have 2 downwards firing speakers on the bottom here. Now there is no separate sub, so you're not going to get huge amounts of bass, but they're very loud speakers and they don't sound too bad. So I'll just give you a quick sample of them right now with this camera comparison that I recently did. So I've got the Mate 30 up against the Mate 30 Pro. Right now you're looking at the front-facing camera. So they sound good, it's just they do lack bass. Sorry, no Fortnite test here, but you'll be able to run Fortnite at 144 frames per second, matching the screen refresh rate on the low settings. But in the full review, I will give you a sample of that. But what I've got here is an RTX supported game. So this supports the ray tracing. I'm going to set the settings to high on 1080p, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and run their in-game benchmark. And we'll take a look and see what kind of result we get. So it finished up with an average frames per second of 87, so it's playable with those settings. But of course, if you want to make the 144 Hz with most of these new titles demanding games, it's very difficult with high settings. You're going to have to put and lower a lot of the settings down to even low and just cut through a lot of the visual effects to try and get as high as possible there, of course. Now, if you can, I highly recommend going for the most powerful GPU in the configuration of a gaming laptop that you're going to buy, because later on you don't regret it, but it of course depends on your budget. So this is the RTX 2060. It's got 1920 CUDA cores, almost 2000, which is very good. It runs DDR6 RAM, and we have, of course, 6 gigabytes of that. And the clock's a little bit higher here as well. Performance with the memory bandwidth too, if you're going to be running 1440p external monitor, is the one to go for versus, say, the GTX 1660 Ti, which is in the cheaper Mi gaming laptops. So we do have switchable graphics on this machine because it doesn't have a G-Sync enabled panel. It's both a good thing and a bad thing, but if you're after maximum battery life, having the switchable graphics here to go onto the integrated Intel graphics saves a huge
amount on the battery, okay? So battery life on this, I need to run my test and all that, but it's not going to be great. You're looking at 2 or 3 hours or so maximum. If you're gaming, then it's only about an hour running on the dedicated GPU. So that is it for this video. It is, after all, just an unboxing, first look and first impressions. So not a lot has changed. The big change, of course, the screen. It looks like a very decent gaming panel they've got in here. 144 Hertz, very bright at 520 lux. And it is, of course, matte anti-glare coated. It doesn't seem to be using pulse width modulation to control the brightness, because I'm not seeing any flicker and not even any flicker on camera. It looks like a really stable screen in that regard. And the other thing too, if you find the Core i7 8750H model with the RTX 2060 and you don't mind 60 Hertz, then go for it if you can find it for a cheaper price, because the Core i7, the 9750H, is a super disappointing upgrade from Intel. It is almost, really, they didn't have to release the CPU. It's such a abysmal increase, 4 to 5% more performance, and in some instances, it's exactly the same as the last gen CPU, because, okay, we've got 400 megahertz more on the top clock, 400 megahertz on the base clock, but in reality, it's not making hardly any difference whatsoever. So my full review will cover fan noise, internals, more benchmarks, a lot of gaming. We'll check the gaming performance of it all. My overall opinion, of course, after using it for at least 1 to 2 weeks. So I hope to see you back then. I also have the review of the Realme 5 Pro. It'll be in the channel soon. I'm currently working on that one and almost done. And also the Mate 30 Pro. I'll work on that over the weekend. So I hope to see you then. Bye for now.